He was born Nasir Jones.
Yes.
In Brooklyn.
Right.
But he didn't really grow up in Brooklyn. He grew up in Queensbridge.
The bridge. The bridge.
The largest housing projects in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Of the United States of America.
We got to thank Frank Dello
and
for that.
It always made me laugh hearing about Queensbridge because I was like, I wonder why they named it that. Maybe it's in Queens. Maybe it's right next to a bridge.
Right by it. By the 59th Street Bridge. Right around.
Why do they call it the 59th Street Bridge?
Because that's right at 59th Street.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. I never would have guessed that.
Genius.
Very creative names in the city of New York.
Oh, yeah.
So he grew up in the Queensbridge projects.
Yes.
And Queensbridge is a mecca of rap music.
There's countless of people that come out of Queensbridge. I mean, starting with like the original days of hip hop, you have MC Shan and Marley Marl, you have Roxanne Shante. You got so many people coming out of there that it's just insane. And it's not just the 80s. It's like every generation had somebody from Queensbridge coming out of there. So I just feel like Nas was destined to be a rapper. If you want to be a really great rapper, I don't think there's a better place to be than where Nas was born, which is Brooklyn. No, just kidding. Than Queensbridge.
Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, so before we even get into like Queensbridge itself, I want to say, so his dad Oludara was a musician.
Yes.
Well, is a musician. He's still alive.
Still alive, still rocking music, some really good music. Nas is actually Nasir bin Oludara Jones, which is like basically son of Oludara Jones.
Yeah, Jones. So Nas's dad, he was a musician, like we were saying. That was his job. Like, he was always out touring, and he was always bringing in like instruments from all over the world.
Yeah.
Like, he had keyboards. He had like African percussion. He had he played the trumpet a lot. Yeah. Right. And Nas and his brother Jungle.
Yes.
They used to always be fucking around with the instruments.
Yeah.
And that was just always something that was around. So they were always, in a musical family.
Absolutely.
And then, it's funny because Nas was born in 73.
Yeah.
And hip-hop wasn't really a thing so much then.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what year Nas was born, okay? Because they say he's 49 right now. And he said he was born the same year as hip-hop, which should be 1974. And you know what I mean? I'm just confused. He's in his late
Close
40s.
Enough.
Exactly. He's in his late 40s.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hip-hop wasn't a thing when he was born.
Right.
But they were on their way.
But he kind of came up with it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's what's cool about it, is because so not only is his dad a musician, he was always exposed to music, but then he's in this place where there's so many fucking people. I mean, Queensbridge was like 10,000 people in the fucking projects. That's bigger than a lot of small towns in America.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about like 4 city blocks.
Yes.
Like, it's fucking insane.
It really is. It really is. That's so crazy. I don't think we get to really know a lot, but in Nas's dad's own words, Nas is a bit of a child prodigy. He said Nas used to pick up any instrument and know how to play it really well.
Yeah.
And used to be, as a little kid, 6 years old, out playing like the horn really well.
I heard his dad say he was playing it when he was 2.
That's insane.
Which is fucking crazy.
Yeah. So we're talking about a real artist here.
Yeah. And then this was the story I just heard. I think it was his dad that said this. He made a joke about he was playing the trumpet so much his lip kind of like...
Yes. It started to get lazy.
Yeah, he got like a lazy lip, and his dad made a joke about it, and then he like never wanted to play the trumpet again.
That must have been some joke. And just by his father's cadence in the voice, I could see that joke really hurting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He was like, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore.
With your big ass lips. It's probably something like that.
I'm never touching the trumpet again.
Exactly.
Thanks, Dad. But
you gotta kill your kid's ambition. That's the way you do it.
That's step number 1.
That's how they learn, okay?
That's how they learn to not give a fuck about what people say.
Exactly.
Even your own family.
That's right.
Even your blood. Okay?
Oh, man. I'm joking for those of you who are going to come for me.
No, we don't make any jokes on this podcast.
We're
100% serious at all times.
All the time.
100%.
All news, all the time. Wait, that's somebody else's slogan. Sorry.
Fair and unbalanced.
You give us 60 minutes, we'll give you... Wait. That's somebody else's slogan. Sorry.
Oh shit! You didn't come up with that just now?
No, I was about to.
Okay. TikTok. What was the last thing we said about Nas? What is this episode about?
Him being an artist, him playing at 2 years old.
Yeah.
We go from there.
Yeah. So he was always into music, and he was just always just like really fucking smart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even as like a little kid, they were saying people were just like drawn to him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And yeah, so he was always into music, and music was always in around. And it was interesting. Like he was saying, I saw in an interview, like, you know, they're living in this place where there's just violence everywhere, right? And there's music everywhere as well. And like where he was at, it was, I mean, it's not really funny, but the way he said, he's like, yeah, we had shit that like other people didn't have, like furniture.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck.
Exactly. Food.
Yeah.
Like,
a television.
Color TV.
Color TV.
And Nas was born in the 70s. It's like, you know, so it's like, it's so interesting that that's how it went down, you know. But yeah, unfortunately, he grew up around a lot of poverty, which was crazy. In the bridge. The bridge. I love that song, okay?
So he was a prodigy. Nas is a prodigy, right? By all accounts. And this was something, I mean, I remember bringing this up when we did the Wu-Tang podcast. There was one time when he was coming up where he met RZA, and RZA said, you got to be rapping like every day for at least 10 years to be like a master.
Yeah.
And he said he met Nas when he was like 16, and he was already a master.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, doing the math in my head, I'm like, so he's been doing this shit since he was like 6?
Yeah, basically.
Like, what?
Yeah, because his dad was saying that around 12, he was really sounding good.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's crazy because for an adult to say that, because that's not his dad's kind of music, you know,
right.
and hip-hop it took a while for the generation that came before the first hip-hoppers to actually accept it as a musical art form.
Yeah.
So for his father to actually listen to his lyricism and be like, man, he's really good, like, he's great.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing.
Yeah, you know, and that just proves, you know, how good he was. And apparently everybody around him knew how good he was. His brother was saying that, like, you know, back in the day, they'd just be in the hallway and he'd be like freestyle, and they just like close their eyes and just like see everything that he was saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he was like nervous at first to like perform in front of other people.
Yeah.
Like he just wanted to do it with like his friends, you know what I mean? He wasn't necessarily like all like, I'm gonna be the biggest rapper ever. Like I'm gonna be, you know, I'm gonna come out of here, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Because his mom was like very much like, you gotta go to school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like very much like, if you're not going to school, like, it's nothing good is going to happen because you're in that environment. It's like, if you're not going to school, you're going to be selling drugs, you're going to end up dead.
Yeah, and that's the generation she was from, like, and especially around that time, late 80s or something like that. If you're doing something like gaming or rapping, it's just like, and your young son is doing that, you're like on your knees praying that he finds a straight path, you know. Right. It's not like now.
Right. So, but when he decided that he really wanted to get into music, he did drop out of school, and it basically broke his mom's heart.
Yeah, they argued for a while, and he was adamant about not going back to school, which I can see because I know a lot of kids who went to New York City high schools that, let's say you didn't go to a specialized high school, you went to a quote-unquote bad school, and everybody would talk about, this is where I used to have to run, this is where the bullies used to chase me, this is where this and that happened, and I know a couple of people who stopped going to school just because the environment was just, it takes too much mental energy just to get there.
Right.
And then when you're in there and inside the school is a crazy environment as well. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about New York City. So many distractions on the way to school.
Right. And if you live in the projects, it's like you're going from crazy environment to crazy environment.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody that has the just the natural talent that he had, you're like, I want to put all my energy into this.
Yeah.
Like, why am I going to go and sit in this fucking building where I got to ask the lady if I can go to the bathroom?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, nah,
right.
I'm not doing that.
Correct.
So, yeah, so he dropped out of school, and he basically just ended up kind of self-teaching himself. Like, he just read, like, everything that
doctors,
he possibly could.
Books, all types of books. I mean, things on, like, anatomy, and you could tell because it comes out in his artwork. Right?
100%.
Nas, the Miles Davis of rap. So we're gonna call him.
You French now?
Yes, I am. What about
shit.
that?
Okay. Yeah, it's funny because you can really tell in his lyrical style that the dude reads a lot. It's funny. Like we just did a Doors podcast.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jim Morrison and Nas, their backgrounds are so different, where they came from and all this shit. But you could tell just by the level of poetry that both of them were at, that both of them had to just be reading all the fucking time.
Right.
Like, there's only, in order to put out words of that level, you have to be taking in words of that level.
Absolutely.
And he clearly was just reading everything, you know? So then obviously his vocabulary just increased exponentially.
Yeah. So he's into the studio life. He's really trying to get that done. We really have to mention this story about his friend William, who was his best friend. Yep. And the two of them were like a Run DMC. They were going to make it together. And
Will was going to be on the turntables.
On the turntable, because that's what you need. 2 turntables and a
microphone.
Right? And so Nas is chilling in some apartment, and Will is outside with Nas's brother Jungle, and something happens. Somebody rolls up on them. They think it's a robbery. The guy has a gun, and Will ends up getting shot in the back 3 times. And he dies right there. We have to mention Ill Will because Nas mentions Ill Will.
And Jungle got shot too.
Yeah, Jungle gets shot in the leg also, and he survives.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Shout out to the Bravehearts, Jungle and all of them and the crew. Whatchamacallit?
Shout out to Mel Gibson.
Exactly.
oh, my bad.
You know rap. You know they named themselves the Bravehearts right after that movie. Okay.
Like, let's go.
Exactly. So Will dies, and you have to mention him because Nas mentions him. From the time you know Nas, you know Ill Will. You know, you just do. So shout out and rest in peace to Ill Will. Sorry that we never got to know you. But with that just catapults Nas's focus. He's gotta rap now.
Right. And it's interesting because I saw like interviews with like his cousins and his family members, and they were like, when Will died, they were like, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either Nas is going to go off the deep end and he's going to be dead soon and just not give a fuck about anything anymore, or he's just going to double down on the art, which clearly is what he did, or we wouldn't be talking about him right now.
Exactly. And I know, I believe it was his grandmother or something that said that what really saves a lot of kids in that environment is the family structure. So it doesn't really matter if like your parents divorced young like his did and stuff like that. If you know like who plays what role, who does what, if you know your parents care about whether you're in school or not, where are you today, did you go do this, is that, then you're able to flourish, I think. And that was gift that was given to Nas, I think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, he knew both of his parents, so that's a big deal right there. Especially you're talking about. He told a story once. I mean, like he was hanging out with his friend, and then his friend's mom just died of a heroin overdose, and they're just watching his friend's mom come out in a body bag, and he's just like, this is fucked. Like, why does this have to happen? But yeah, no, he was pretty fortunate in that respect that he had. I mean, his parents split up when he was 12, 13, but he knew both of them.
Exactly.
And they were around while he was growing up. You know what I mean? So that definitely is important to give, you know, a little bit of structure. But yeah, so he really doubles down on rap. And he hooks up with this producer, Large Professor.
He hits the studio. And he's in there, and we've got to mention these producers, okay? Because Large Professor wasn't just a producer. He had his own group called Main Source, and they have music out. If you're a real hip-hop, like, you know, if you really want to get into the history of it, Main Source was a good group, and they did have great music. And like I will mention all the other producers coming up, but every single one of those producers on Nas's first album had their own group with fire records. As well.
And this is a cool story that I heard when we were looking up things for this. So apparently Large Professor was doing something with Eric B and Rakim, and like during the times where they were like go out of the studio, he would like rush Nas in to try to like record during their studio time. And apparently Rakim came in one day.
Yes, and saw Nas.
And Large Professor was like, yo, you gotta check out this kid, like listen to this verse. And Rakim would just listen to his like respect or fucking whatever. He was just like, you got something here, like don't stop.
Don't stop.
That must have been so amazing for him.
Nas said it was like a dream.
Yeah.
Because when you rate your MCs, even back in that time, I feel like it was Rakim and then there was Nas. Nas was like the second coming of Rakim.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I mean, I wasn't around at that time, but I've always listened to Rakim, and I always thought, like, he was just so much better than everyone else at the time, right? Like, just his style was just crazy. Just, like, the way that he, like, structured his rhymes and shit. And I know that Nas is probably thinking that, too. So for him to hear that from him must have been just, like, a crazy boost of, like, okay, like, this is really what I need to do.
Exactly.
Like, I already thought this is what I had to do, but now it's for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So he gets in the studio. It's getting to a point where I think his mom it got sick.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. But he goes to he starts making the music, and he starts battling, and he's deciding how hard he wants to go, and he actually goes to MC Serge, who's another producer, and I'm just gonna call him what it is, a gatekeeper. MC Serge is definitely a gatekeeper, so he goes to MC Serge, who was around the studio already,
right.
You know, and they're in Queensbridge, and the whole school of rappers are pretty much around at the same time. So you've got people probably like Capone and Noriega in the studio, Kwamega, Mobb Deep, because we're figuring it's all the elite coming up. So MC Serge is the one who really puts him on, like opens the door. And MC Serge had his own group called Third Base, and they are essential to hip hop as well. And then Nas gets a whole bunch of fire producers on his album. He gets fucking DJ Premier. Shout out to Brooklyn again. From Gangstar. I can't believe it. He gets Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest. Shout out to Queens. And he gets Pete Rock, who also is a great producer. Had a group called Pete Rock and CL Smooth. And shout out to Mount Vernon. I think that's where Pete Rock is from. But all those producers in their own rights had their own fire beats for their own groups. Yeah. So once they came together for Nas's album...
Well, that's what they were saying. They were like, you know that this kid was a prodigy to bring all these people together on one album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the song that actually made him pop was with Large Professor's group, right? What was the name of the song? Something about a barbecue?
Yeah. I thought it was Back to the Grill Again, but it's some other song about a barbecue, and I don't remember what it is, but I know Back to the Grill Again is definitely one of the remixes that Nas was on.
Yeah, well, he just came in with this verse, right? And sometimes it's like all you need is one verse. Yeah. It's like
all you need is one mic.
One mic. It's funny because, like, you know, you can be doing something for so long, and then you could just have one thing that all of a sudden puts you over the top. And that was kind of like this verse that he had on this track where everybody heard it and was just like, holy shit, who is this kid? He's 17? What the fuck? This guy is like the chosen one. This guy's a fucking prodigy. Like, he's gonna be next. Yeah. You know what I mean? People were like already saying that just off that verse. Yeah. So then that's when all these producers started coming around, because they kind of heard of him like through the grapevine, and from that, they were kind of like, okay, like, I'll work with this guy.
Right. I believe the verse was when he was 12. He went to hell for snuffing Jesus. Who wants to snuff Jesus? Some people want to snuff Jesus. We don't like that name.
Snuffin' Jesus could be like a metal band name.
Oh man, that's true. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But okay, yeah. So he's in the studio with all these producers, and he's working on this album that I don't know if this was always the working title, but it's Illmatic, which is considered to be one of, if not the greatest rap albums of all time.
Absolutely.